Welcome back to another video. Today we are back for another NFL video. Today starting our team prediction series. This is a series I have talked about for a while, literally all summer long. The time has finally come. I was very kind of hesitant of how I was going to do this series, so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to upload it by division. So in this video, you're going to see the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns. I'm going to record them not all in one sitting so that I talk about each team an even amount. I don't talk over one team or not enough, and I'm going to piece it all together. That way it's all in one, and I still have enough time to get Madden videos out whenever Madden drops, because otherwise I don't have enough days to do a full video for each team. So basically, yes, it's going to be by division, but it's all basically individual videos just in one big video. So I will include the timestamps either in a comment or the description. Just go ahead and check that where your team starts. So if you're a Ravens fan and you don't care about the Bengals right now, then just go down, click on the Ravens timestamp, and it'll take you to that point in the video where it will go all the way on the Ravens. So hopefully that makes sense. That's how I'm going to do this series, so hopefully that works out for you guys. Just the easiest way that I can do it as of right now. And so it should be more in-depth in my player prediction series because, again, that's more individual. This is kind of the entire team. So starting out with the Bengals is also, I want to say this real quick, in no particular order. So I start with the Bengals. I'm not saying they're going to be the best in the division. They might be, but they might not. It doesn't really matter. Okay, it's all out of order, so just, keep that in mind. Anyway, though, so starting out with the Bengals, it kind of lists their top players from last year, and I actually want to talk about that immediately, is that Von Bell. He's not on the team anymore, and actually a big thing in defensively is that the Bengals actually lost Von Bell and Jesse Bates. Those are two veteran safeties, two big leaders of that defense. That's going to be a big hit. I know they have Dax Hill, and I know he is supposedly pretty good, young prospect out of Michigan, but you can't really teach experience. That just comes with time, and Jesse Bates had that, so did Von Bell. It's definitely a hit to your defense, but your defense is still pretty good. You still have guys like Jermaine Pratt, who's been playing very well, and Logan Wilson, who is actually listed here. Definitely one of the more underrated linebackers in the NFL, in my opinion, and honestly, even in the Bengals, kind of an unsung hero. He is very, very good, very consistent. I actually like the Bengals defense a lot considering what they lost. I kind of like the Dax Hill draft pick. I like they bring in Nick Scott for strong safety. Not incredible by any means, but definitely still a veteran player there. I actually really like their Jordan Battle pick, I think it was. No, it's not Jordan Battle, I don't think. It is Jordan Battle. I second guess myself. He is their safety who they just drafted out of, I believe it was Alabama. They also drafted DJ Turner for corner, and he looked pretty good in training camp. And they drafted Myles Murphy with their first round selection for another edge rusher. So I actually like the Bengals defense a lot. You still have Sam Hubbard. You still have Trey Hendrickson, who just re-signed again. DJ Reader. I think the defense is quite underrated. I just think it is definitely going to hurt not having those two safeties anymore. But hopefully those young guys can kind of grow into filling those roles pretty well. But over to the offense, and I'm not done with the defense, but just kind of recapping a little bit here. I'm hopefully going to... There you go. That should be good. So for offense, you have Joe Burrow. Have that calf injury. It was a little scary there, but he should be fine for week 1. That's what really matters. Jamar Chase, back and healthy. He had over 1,000 yards and missed, I think 6 games last year. Incredibly impressive. One of the better receivers in the entire NFL. You still have T. Higgins, one of the best wide receiver 2s in the NFL, maybe the best wide receiver number 2 in the NFL. Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon takes a pay cut to stay. You do lose Samaje Perine and Hayden Hurst, who are two guys that actually played pretty well last year for the Bengals. It should list Hayden Hurst actually down here, and he had, I cannot find where he is, 414 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Not too bad considering he wasn't the biggest addition to the team last year, but he actually played really well, and I'm kind of excited to see him in Carolina, actually. I'm repping my shirt, too. And then Perine also kept pretty big for him. 4 touchdowns last year and 200 and I think it says 87 yards receiving-wise. So those are 2 guys you want to have there, especially Samaje Perine, just for some veteran depth. You now draft Chase Brown, who's a pretty good rookie running back out of Illinois. I'm not sure how much he'll see the field. I think he will see the field maybe a bit more than you'll think because Mixon needs a backup to see the field. Mixon's not really an every down back, especially with his injury history. He tends to get hurt and banged up throughout the season. So Chase Brown, hopefully that pick worked out for you. Really not sure what to make of that as right now, though. Not a whole lot out of training camp about him. I think he had a decent run. That's been about it so far. And then other than that, you lose Hayden Hurst. You also bring in Irv Smith Jr. from the Vikings, who has just had health problems, it seems like. Kind of gets hurt. He had some drop issues last year. But it seems like the Bengals used their tight ends in a way that gets them open. So, I mean, I know that sounds kind of stupid, but I mean, they kind of do, kind of seam routes and that kind of thing. So, I would hope Irv Smith doesn't have drop problems when he's wide open, but he did last year again on the Vikings. I'm not going to lie. He had a wide open touchdown on the Vikings against the Eagles, and he just dropped it, hit him right in the chest. So, hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully he can kind of, I guess, bounce back from that bit of a drop issue there. But overall, I like the Bengals offense and defense a lot. I think they're still one of the better teams in the league. I don't want to, talk too much about the safeties I lost, but I don't want to, understate it either, because it is a big deal. But I don't want to make it seem like too big of a deal, because it's not like they don't have anybody to replace them. They do have players to replace them. It's just going to be that veteran presence, especially from Jesse Bates, who's one of the better free safeties in the entire league. That's what you're going to miss. To kind of recap last year a little bit, we kind of just finished that. So talking about this year now, what is the depth chart looking like? Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Irv Smith, like I've said. Now some other big additions have been Orlando Brown as their new left tackle, coming over from the Chiefs. You now have Orlando Brown, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, and Jonah Williams as your offensive line, which is miles and miles and miles better than what it was when the Bengals hit the Super Bowl against the Rams. I'm pretty sure 3 of the 5 are not even in the league anymore, I think, from that offensive line. But you revamp it the past couple of years, building around Joe Burrow, right thing to do. Good choice bringing Orlando Brown Jr. I like it a lot. But yeah, so offense looking very good. I kind of already talked about that a little bit, but I just want to have it up here for everybody to see. Trenton Irwin, I think, is a really good depth receiver. He does make some big plays. Troy Jones is a rookie, and so is Andre Iovi. I'm going to butcher the name, but whatever. He's another rookie wide receiver as well. But all in all, Bengals defense, still one of the best in the league. But I do want to talk about the defense. I want to talk about the coaching. Lou Anarumo, who actually almost had the head coaching job for the Cardinals this year until Jonathan Gannon got it. He's a great defensive coordinator. As Eli Apple called him last year, he called him a mad scientist. It really seems like that. His defensive coordinating, I guess, I'm not sure how to phrase that, but I mean, I guess that's how you say it. It's just always one of the better kind of jobs in the league as far as his schemes go. He really finds ways to get guys that may not be the best at their position, put them in positions to really succeed. Like Eli Apple, and I've said this before in my videos, is not as good as he thinks he is, but he's not as bad as everybody makes him out to be. But he actually played fairly solid while he was on the Bengals. I mean, he actually didn't do too terrible. He got burned a couple times, not going to lie. But overall, his coverage was actually pretty consistent. I don't think they talk about that too much. But again, a lot of that did have to do with scheme. He was put in ways to succeed. And this defense is not bad by any means. You have Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, and BJ Hill and Trey Hendrickson on that defensive line. And you also still have Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy. And Osai's already a very good defensive lineman who's already kind of proved that. And he's still young and kind of developing. And then Miles Murphy, first-round pick. So that defensive line looks very, very good. A lot of depth there. I like that a lot. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt are 2 very good linebackers, along with Akeem Davis-Gaither. And then also Chidobe Awuzie, I think is how you say his last name. If I said that wrong too. He's coming off the ACL tear, so I'm not sure if he's healthy for the start of the year or kind of where that kind of lies, but he's a great corner. Whether or not he has a great year after tearing his ACL, I don't really know, because sometimes it can take longer for corners to kind of recover from that. But again, he's a great corner. Mike Hilton's a great corner. They drafted DJ Turner, and they also drafted DJ Ivey, I think in the 6th or 7th round, who's actually made some pretty good plays in training camp. So that's a name to watch for the Bengals defense for sure. But a player I want to highlight in just a minute, actually. And also, like I said, you have Nick Scott at strong safety and then Dax Hill free safety. I have a lot of faith in Dax Hill. I think he's going to turn out pretty good, but he might just need a lot of opportunity, which he's going to see, but he might struggle at first. I really wouldn't doubt if he struggles at first, because he hasn't seen the field a whole lot. And the AFC North has a lot of high competition and pretty good receivers and weapons as well to cover. The player I wanted to highlight is Cameron Taylor-Britt. Now, this guy actually looked pretty good last year, I believe, as a rookie. He had an interception against Josh Allen in the playoffs. The game was already kind of over, but still he had a pick. And he had a key breakup earlier in that game as well. And he kind of showed out in that game overall. But he's looked quite good in training camp. He's covered Jamar Chase about as good as you can cover Jamar Chase. He's left some catches and stuff, but he's really stayed step for step. He actually had a good pass breakup on the sideline as well. So that guy is definitely a name to watch for a breakout corner this year. He's actually looked very, very good. And again, I mentioned before, but I'll say it again. Jordan Battle, who came from Alabama. I'm going to guess he gets that starting strong safety job. Whether it's the end of this year or next year, I think he's going to kind of come into that and actually fill the role pretty well for the Bengals. But that's a whole lot of kind of, the players and what they have, how they're going to do this year. It's kind of like what this video is all about. What are they going to do with all this? And I actually have their schedule put up that I want to go over right now. And I'm actually going to do a week pick series this year, going over, every week making my picks, seeing how many I get right, how many I get wrong. So I'm going to make my picks now, but just know that this will not be the same as it's going to be throughout the year because I'm not sure how injuries are going to go and any changes in performances. This is just as of right now in the offseason before the season starts. If I had to pick, this is how I would do it. So first game, the Bengals open up at Cleveland. Joe Burrow has actually really struggled to play the Browns. I believe he's only beaten them one time. So I'm actually going to pick a Bengals loss opening week in Cleveland. I don't think the Bengals win that game. I think they're the better team, but for whatever reason, the Browns always steal a game off of them. So I do think the Browns win that game. But then back in Cincinnati against Baltimore, I think the Bengals bounce back and they win that one. I think they beat the Rams. I think they win in Tennessee because they just play the Titans very, very well. Despite the Titans getting D-Hop, I think the Bengals still win that game. I think they crush Arizona, and I think they beat Seattle as well. So they start with a loss, go on a bit of a win streak until the bye week, and then it gets a lot tougher. So for San Francisco, I'm going to actually say they lose that game. The 49ers and Bengals, I think, are very even. It's going to be a very tough matchup. But I think the 49ers defense is going to give the Bengals some problems. And overall, I think the Bengals just kind of lose that one coming off their bye week. Very competitive game. Then after that's Buffalo. Now, this is a game I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for because the last time they played last season was the whole DeMar Hamlin incident. The game was getting canceled. But before that injury, that game started out really, really good. I mean, it was really electric. A lot of back and forth plays. So that should be a very exciting game. That is also in Cincinnati. So I'm going to pick the Bengals in that one. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to pick the Bengals in that game. They started out really good last year until that incident happened, and I think they're going to kind of pick up where they left off. They seemed really fired up to play the Bills in primetime football, so I think they win that game, and I think they beat Houston, and I think they also lose when going out to Baltimore. I think they split with Baltimore. They played the Steelers in Cincinnati. I think the Bengals win that game, and then they go to Jacksonville. This game, I think, is going to be very, very high scoring because the Jaguars' defense is fairly young, and I don't think a single person on that roster can stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But also, the Jaguars' offense is one that I'm expecting to be one of the best this season, and they might give the Bengals' defense some issues, especially with two very young safeties. So, in Jacksonville, I'm actually going to pick the Jaguars to win that game. Bit of an upset, I guess. Well, maybe at that point of the year. I don't really know. But I'm going to pick that, Jaguars 38, Bengals 35. Super close game, super high scoring, super exciting. But I think the Jaguars do come out on top in that one. Then back to Cincinnati against the Colts and the Vikings. I think the Bengals win both of those. The Colts just aren't on that level yet. And the Vikings are offensively, but just not defensively. I think the Bengals crush that defense. And then also at Pittsburgh, I'm picking the Bengals to win that game as well. I think they actually sweep Pittsburgh this year. They nearly did it last year until, of course, they missed the extra point to win the game and then went into overtime and, so on. So I do think the Bengals beat Pittsburgh both times this year. Two pretty close games because, again, they always play each other very competitively, but I think the Bengals come out on top in both of those. And then they go to Arrowhead. I'm actually going to pick the Chiefs in this game. The Bengals had the better overall record against the Chiefs. Well, I guess Joe Burrow has a better overall record against Patrick Mahomes. But I think Mahomes is going to really take advantage of those two young safeties, and I think they're going to kind of tear up that defense a little bit. Linebackers and corners, again, I think they play the Chiefs great, but Dax Hill and Nick Scott, or maybe even Jordan Battle at that point in the year, I think it might be tough. Chiefs have a lot of playmakers this year as long as Kadarius Toney can stay healthy. If Sky Moore kind of takes that next step that it seems like he will, maybe even if Justin Ross gets minutes, and of course Travis Kelce, that Chiefs offense, very, very good. I think they win that game. And then Browns back in Cincinnati, the Bengals, I think, win that game there. So I'm not sure how many L's and whatever I kind of chose in that. I'll have it on the screen for you guys, of course. But I think overall it's going to be a very solid season for the Bengals. I don't think they're going to lose. I mean, I'm not sure how many I picked. I'm not going to say that and it sounds stupid. But however many I picked, it's about how many I think they can win realistically. But again, I mean, they could win more if they happen to beat Cleveland week 1 like I picked them to lose. Or if they end up beating Jacksonville. Or maybe they beat the Chiefs again. I don't know. You could pick them to win a lot of these games. But again, you could also pick them to lose both times to Baltimore. You could pick them to lose to the Titans after all, or even the Seahawks, or even the Bills. So it could go either way. I could see how you guys would disagree anywhere in there. That's just kind of how I have it and how I picture the Bengals going this season. But again, I think it's going to be a bit of a growing year for that defense. Losing those two safeties is going to hurt a lot as far as experience goes. Hopefully they get better as the year goes on, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some struggles there to open the year. Guys, to end off the video, I want to kind of make 3 bold predictions. I want to see how well these age. They might age terribly, but that's kind of the point of this. I want to kind of put some big numbers out there and see how close they get. And maybe I'll even react to these videos at the end of the season, see how close I got and all that kind of stuff. My first one, though, comes to Joe Burrow. He himself had 35 touchdowns last year and 4,475 yards. I'm going to say Joe Burrow breaks 40 touchdowns this year. I want to see how close he can get to that. I think it's definitely possible. It's just 5 more. He was 5 away from that with Jamar Chase hurt last year. So I'm saying 40-plus touchdowns. It's obviously not easy, but I think he's very capable of it. We'll kind of see where that falls there, though. But I'm going to say Joe Burrow, 40-plus passing touchdowns. And then I want to make a defensive one as well. Actually, my defensive one, we'll say Jordan Battle, it becomes a starter by the end of the year. I want to see how well that kind of goes for him this season because I think he has a lot of potential there at safety. And I wouldn't say he was a steal, but I think you got great value for when you picked him, and he could become a quality starter in the NFL. So we'll say Burrow, 40-plus passing touchdowns. Jordan Battle becomes a starter. And for our third one, let's see. I mean, you lose P. Ryan. I'm trying to think of another fun one to do. So we'll see. Actually, no, we'll do Irv Smith. We'll say, how many touchdowns did Hayden Hurst have last year? He had 2 touchdowns last year. We'll say Irv Smith, 3 touchdowns. Let's see if we can just break Hayden Hurst 2 touchdowns last year. Hayden Hurst did great. Didn't find the end zone much. Let's see if Irv Smith can more than Hayden Hurst did. So those are my 3 bold predictions. They might not be the most bold, but just kind of random fun ones. Just to kind of see what happens. But I want to end off these kind of team predictions with 3 of those for every team. We'll see how well those age. But that's going to do it for the Bengals section of this video. I'm going to then move on to the next team, who I honestly haven't decided who it's going to be yet. So whoever it is coming up next. But yeah, over to that team. All right, guys, and now over to the Ravens. So again, it lists their top players. I'm going to take this one with a grain of salt, and I suggest you guys do as well because the injuries really piled up for Baltimore last year. But again, it has Lamar for the passing and rushing yards, Mark Andrews for the receiving yards, Patrick Queen, and then, yeah, so, and then I think Marcus Williams, right? Yeah, so then, like I said, injuries piled up for him. Let's start out, though, kind of talking about how, let's see, I'm trying to think. We'll start with that offense. I want to talk about the offense last year. So, last year, the offense was supposed to be pretty good. You know, you have Lamar back, of course, and you have Rashad Bateman supposed to have a big year, and then he goes down with injuries. J.K. Dobbins is not as healthy as you wanted him to be. Even Mark Andrews has a bit of a down year, and overall it just seemed like it was very lackluster, and you still, though, almost beat the Bengals in the playoffs. You made the playoffs and almost beat the Bengals with Tyler Huntley. So, again, for what happened last year, you actually still had a pretty good season, and you didn't have a lot of your best players. So, that is actually pretty, I mean, a good thing to look at going into this year, that you have a lot of new guys in now, and everybody that was hurt should be healthy now. So, I think this year's going to be a lot different for Baltimore. I don't know what it's really going to look like as far as, like, the playoffs and stuff because the AFC is so competitive. But the Ravens are definitely competitive enough to get a spot in the AFC playoffs, and that is saying something because of just how competitive everything is. Defensively, the Ravens always have a really good defense, it seems like. Last year was no exception. Kyle Hamilton, I think that guy is going to continue to be one of the better safeties in the league. He got to be very good last year. I think he was the one that actually had the clutch hit on Hayden Hurst, I think, to cause a fumble. So, again, I like that guy a lot. I think he's really good. But actually, kind of shockingly, the focus of the team prediction, I'm talking about offense and defense, but it is actually going to be more offensive heavy for Baltimore, and I'm actually really excited about that. Usually it's more defensive heavy, but we have a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this Ravens offense. I'm really excited about that, and I'm sure Ravens fans are too. So I think I'm kind of good with the short recap because there's not a lot. I mean, I guess Mark Andrews, I think, led in receiving, and second was Demarcus Robinson. So, Devin Duvernay was up there. That's not going to be this year. So let's get on to this year already for the Ravens. I was going to talk more about kind of last year, but I want to kind of jump to the fun part here. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty excited. So this is the depth chart as of right now. You have Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews. I cannot stress this enough, but I really, really like this offense. The only reason that I am sometimes kind of skeptical when it comes to how well they're going to be this year is just because of injuries. Just because Lamar has got hurt in the past few years, J.K. Dobbins, Bateman coming off an injury, and even Odell. It does concern me, but man, if this offense is healthy, it could easily be one of the better offenses in the entire NFL. I want to let's focus on Odell first. So Odell, I mean, probably receiver. A lot of you guys grew up watching as like the best in the league. Prime Odell was one of the, in my opinion, one of the most fun players to watch. He's not that anymore, but I don't think it's fair to say he's washed, because when he was on the Rams and they won the Super Bowl, Odell contributed to that. I mean, a lot actually. So until he got hurt, he was having a great Super Bowl too. And even to get there, he was playing well. So I like Odell. I like bringing him in. I do think it is questionable coming off 2 ACL tears for a receiver, but Odell has always been a freak athlete. That's just like what he's always been. So I'm not going to write him off because of injuries, because if any person is going to overcome that, it's going to be Odell, just because of how crazy of an athlete he is. So I think Odell could have a huge year. But the reason I actually think he might not have as big of a year is because the Ravens actually have other weapons, which I haven't really got to say before, but they actually have other weapons to get the ball. Rashad Bateman, I think, is kind of being overlooked. I think I've even actually overlooked him. But I think he's still a solid receiver. And I've been dying to talk about this person. But the reason he's overlooked is because of Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, for a while now, has been one of my favorite prospects on offense as far as rookies go. This guy is so shifty. He is so elusive. His route running is really good. I think they said Lamar already calls him joystick because he's so like shifty and elusive and all that kind of stuff. I think Zay is going to be great. I really think he's going to be one of the better rookie wide receivers in the league. I think it's probably going to be either him or Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's going to be one of them. I really do feel that way. But again, Zay might not have a standout year because of the other guys that can get the ball. But in my opinion, I do think that Zay's actually, hold on. I'm going to say that prediction I was just thinking of till the end of the video because I just thought of something. But moving on from that, you still have Mark Andrews, of course. And let's not overlook Mark Andrews. He's one of the best tight ends in the entire NFL. Last year is definitely a down year for him. I haven't fantasy football, so believe me, I know it was a down year for him. But again, and even other than him, you have Isaiah Likely. He's actually a pretty good backup tight end. He's made some plays. So I'm really excited for this because I don't think Lamar's ever had weapons like this in his entire career. He has depth at positions like Devin Duvernay. He's not a starting caliber wide receiver in the NFL, but wide receiver 4, that's not bad. That's not bad depth there at all. Same with Nelson Aguilar. So I do actually like that a lot because the guys that the Ravens had starting, I think should not have been starting. But if those guys are like depth guys or role players, that's a lot different. They can definitely handle that. Devin Duvernay is not a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, or maybe even wide receiver 2 on other teams. But if you have him in for certain plays, maybe some screens, that he can handle, and that's a good kind of role for him to play. So I think making the players that they were having to play roles bigger than themselves was not working. Moving them down and getting better players, drafting better players, I think is going to be huge for this offense. It's going to take stress off of Lamar and having to kind of run for everything when he has guys that can get open. I think a big thing for the Ravens, though, is you need J.K. Dobbins healthy. This is someone that the past couple of years has been looked at as like a really good running back, and he hasn't been able to show it. Not his fault at all. It's been injuries. But you need this guy healthy. I've heard he's not happy with his contract, but I mean, look, I understand, Josh Jacobs, all that kind of stuff. You got to go out there and, kind of prove it, though. I mean, you've struggled with injuries. You need to get out there and prove you can play. I mean, he's a great running back. I'm not saying he can't play, but I think before you kind of get all upset with contracts, you just get those injuries out of the way, get back on the field, and kind of prove that you deserve that pay. And I do think if that happens, Dobbins will deserve money. He's a great running back as long as he can bounce back and healthy. And I think it's also going to make the offense even deadlier because if you have an established running back, that's going to make... I mean, I don't even know what they're going to drop in that Ravens backfield as far as Lamar goes and Dobbins goes, and then all kinds of, screen passes to Zay Flowers. The possibilities are really endless, and that's the next thing I want to talk about is coaching. I'm not really going to get into Harbaugh or anything, but I do want to get into the offensive coordinator. So the one from last year, Greg Roman, I think, he's gone. You bring in, I think his name's Todd Monken, I'm pretty sure. And it's supposed to be more, I think, vertical offense. It was more pass heavy. That's what I've heard. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I mean, looking at the guys they've brought in, you kind of have to think, yeah, that's probably the case, that they bring in Odell and draft a receiver. So I'm really excited for that, because Lamar always gets, the whole like running back jokes, but Lamar's a great passer. And honestly, I think the jokes have come in because he hasn't been able to always prove how good of a passer he is at times. But now you have the weapons, and as long as everybody can stay healthy, there's really no more excuses. You have a good offensive coordinator. I mean, hopefully, at least at the very, I mean, honestly, it cannot possibly be worse than the last guy. So I'm still gonna say good offensive coordinator. I do think the Ravens have a whole other type of offense this year. It's really exciting to watch. I will say, I think when it comes to their new weapons, it's almost being like put above Mark Andrews. Let's not do that, because Mark Andrews, when healthy, is like literally one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So I think, and again, not to take away from Odell or Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, it just makes the offense even better. If Mark Andrews is back to how he was playing, and you bring in these guys like Odell and Zay Flowers, and Bateman's back and healthy, this is one really, really good offense, and I'm honestly really excited kind of looking at it like that. But to move on to the defense, I spent a lot of time on the offense, just to look at the defense for a little bit as well, because it is a whole team prediction thing here. You do lose Calais Campbell. That's a big loss, honestly. It's a good veteran defensive tackle there. I think he went to, like, the Saints. Maybe that's wrong. I can't remember now, but I just know he's not there anymore. I talked about Kyle Hamilton, and he is someone I want to see a lot about this year. I think he has a lot of kind of potential to be one of the better strong safeties in the entire NFL. He had a very good rookie year, but it just wasn't really, like, I think, put out there much. It was kind of more like, Aiden Hutchinson, Sauce Gardner. Not to say that Kyle Hamilton's better than those players, but he is definitely on a very high level for a rookie last year. And I think he can continue to play at that level and even continue to develop and get better than that. I think the big things, though, Roquan Smith, bringing him in, absolutely huge. From the Bears, he proved to be definitely worth that trade, in my opinion, last year. Patrick Queen, still a great linebacker in this league. And then, again, looking at the defensive line, I swear there was someone that I really wanted to... I guess, okay, it was David Ojabo. I thought he was more of like an edge guy. Maybe he's just listed as a linebacker. I'm not really sure. But I think he has a lot of potential as well. And overall, I think the Ravens defense, again, always super competitive. They're going to give you problems. But in my opinion, I think a guy I want to focus on is Kyle Hamilton. I think there's a lot there. All right, guys, and so then looking ahead at the Ravens schedule, I think that there's a lot of potential here to have a very good season. Again, this is all as if injuries don't happen. I don't want to, I mean, yes, it's a possibility, but like I'm not going to predict it as if they get banged up. This is if everyone can stay healthy, just to get that out of the way. So first game against Houston, I think the Ravens win that. They are just a better overall team. The Bengals, as I said before in this video, I'm actually going to have the Ravens losing that game in Cincinnati. Then you play the Colts. I think you win that. You play in Cleveland. I think you win that. You play in Pittsburgh. I actually think you lose that. I think the Ravens defense actually gives the Steelers defense actually gives the Ravens offense a lot of problems. And I think one of the more kind of low-scoring games, I think Pittsburgh comes away with that one. And then you play Tennessee and Detroit. These are two games I've gone back and forth with a lot because I think they can really go either way. I'm going to pick the Ravens in actually both of these games. I think the Titans game is up in the air because of if the Ravens can stop that offense. I think the Ravens defense is phenomenal, but we haven't really got to see how Hopkins fits into that whole Titans offense with Treylon Burks and Derrick Henry. It's going to be a great offense, I think. But again, a little hard to predict that one, but I will say the Ravens win that. Then also Detroit, two super good offenses, probably incredibly high scoring, like 42 to 35 type high scoring. I'm going to say the Ravens, though, just because the Ravens defense is better than the Lions, in my opinion. So I'm going to say the Ravens win both of those. I think they beat Arizona. I think they actually lose to Seattle, though. I think Seattle's offense does give the Ravens defense some issues. Seattle has a very, very good wide receiver trio, assuming Jackson Smith and Jigba is as good as I think he's going to be. So I'm actually going to say Seattle wins that game. Then you play Cleveland again. I think the Ravens win that. I think they sweep Cleveland completely. You play the Bengals at home in Baltimore. I think the Ravens win that game. And then also in LA against the Chargers, I think you lose that game. Chargers are pretty hard to beat at home. And again, I think if the Chargers stay healthy, they could also have one of the better offenses in the entire NFL as well. So I'm picking the Chargers in that one. And you have a pretty late bye week. I think after that, it is pretty tough. I think you beat the Rams. Jaguars, I do think you... I was going to say lose to. I'm still gonna say lose too. I picked the Bengals to lose to them as well. I think the Jaguars are gonna be really really good this year, man. So I'm saying the Ravens lose that one. I think they also lose in San Francisco. Miami, I didn't know they played Miami again. Actually, that's gonna be really exciting. Honestly, that caught me off guard. I did not even see Miami on here. Last game it was crazy this past year. I'll leave that one up to you guys. Honestly, I'm not really gonna go either way on that one. I think it could really go either way. Actually, assuming Jalen Ramsey is back then, because he very well could be back that far into the season, Miami might win that one actually. So I'm kind of leaning Miami, but if you say Ravens, totally valid. And then Pittsburgh, in Baltimore, I think the Ravens split with them. I'm going to say the Ravens win that game. So again, not sure how many wins, losses that is, but I'll have it on the screen, of course. I think the Ravens have some of the best potential to have one of the better overall teams this year. It's kind of similar to the Chargers, though, as if the injuries just don't happen, because both teams always deal with injuries throughout the year to like some of their better players, and it really sucks. It sucks to watch. It sucks the injuries have to do that and kind of derail seasons. But man, if either one of those teams can stay healthy, they will have one of the better offenses and defenses in the NFL. But Ravens offense is really what I'm focusing on this year, because it's just so exciting. The Ravens offense has so many weapons for the first time in a while. So that's kind of how I see this year going for them. Again, like I said, for the Bengals, things can go either way. I would say that the Steelers game in Pittsburgh, Ravens could definitely win that. I picked them to lose, but again, you never know. They could also lose, though, that Tennessee and Detroit back-to-back. I picked the Ravens in both those. That could go either way, though. I'm not going to lie. So, again, let me know what you guys have down below for their record. That's just kind of how I see it. I'll get it all sorted out while I'm editing as far as how many games go, so I'll have the final thing on the screen just so it makes sense for my standings at the end of the video. But, yeah, this is kind of the Ravens one. I'm going to finish off the Ravens section, though, with the bold predictions like I did for the Bengals. The one I thought about while I was filming, though, is I'm going to say Zay Flowers leads the Ravens in either yards or receptions as a rookie. That's pretty big considering you have Mark Andrews and Odell on that team. I'm saying Zay Flowers might do either one of those. I'd love to see that. I'm going to say Lamar breaks 3,500 passing yards. A little bold prediction there, but if he can stay healthy with all those weapons, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't, to be honest. Lamar has a ton of talent. Definitely possible. And do I do defense, or can I just say another? I'm going offense. I don't care. I'm going to their offensive one. I'm going to say Odell breaks 800 yards. That's a little high. I think his line is like 600 for like betting. I'm going to say Odell breaks like 800 or something. So we'll see how well those age. It was kind of like my bolder predictions for the Ravens. I just am so excited to watch that offense. There's just so much there for the first time in a while. And if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm super excited. But that is going to finish the Ravens section of this video. So now over to the next team. All right, guys, and now to the next team is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, as it lists their top players, one of the biggest guys for them this year is Deshaun Watson, and he's not listed because he didn't play last year. So we'll talk about all that. But as far as everybody else goes, Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper and Grant Delpit are kind of the main guys up there. Now, Nick Chubb, I think, is going to have another huge year. I don't see why he wouldn't, because now Kareem Hunt's gone. So I think running back number 2 is Jerome Ford from UC going into his second year. I think Nick Chubb has majority of the carries still. I think there's no way he goes for less than 1,200 rushing yards, in my opinion. Nick Chubb is just that good. And now it seems like he has even more work cut out for him. So I think Nick Chubb could have definitely another big year. But kind of getting to it last year, the Browns, like, I feel like the focus last year was Deshaun Watson the entire time. It was just all kind of like, yeah, this is cool, they're winning or losing, but like, when does Deshaun get here? We want to see like what Deshaun does. And you know, he was suspended for I think 12 games, and he comes back. So Brissett did fairly solid, you know, while he was in there. I mean, he wasn't expected to, you know, have the greatest year of all time or anything. I think when Deshaun Watson came in there, it was a little lackluster, I think, but again, he hadn't played in a while, and it was a new team, so it was very much expected. I still think the Browns had a lack of weapons, although we will get into it in a little bit. I think that problem is much smaller now this year, and we'll talk about that in a second. Also, at the time of recording this, the Browns are one of 2 teams, them and the Jets, that have actually played a preseason game already. No one else has played yet at the time of recording this, and the Browns did win that game. There are some exciting flashes there that we will talk about in just a minute. But yeah, so overall, offense last year was really just kind of Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and other than Nick Chubb, of course, and David Njoku, who actually had a pretty good year. And I think I actually have him in a few fantasy football drafts for this season. So hopefully he does well there. But yeah, so over to defense though, and we are gonna look through this. Like I think the guys that everybody focuses on, is Myles Garrett and where is the receiver or the corner that I was just thinking of? Why? Okay, Denzel Ward. I couldn't find him for a second. That was going crazy. Or kind of like who they focus on. But Grant Delpit, as listed up there, had a great year last year. I think he's a little underrated there. And then also where is the other guy I was just looking at? Deion Jones. He's listed for last year. They actually did lose him. He just got signed by Carolina now. So some changes there that we will talk about again in just a minute. But overall last year for the Browns, I think it was really kind of a distraction year, just looking for Deshaun Watson, because you knew what you had was not what was going to be there moving forward. So it was just kind of like killing time until Deshaun got there, what he can do. But I think Brissett, when he played, he did fine. Like he didn't do terrible, but he didn't do great. It's just kind of how it was. But going into this year, there are some serious changes for the Browns, and I'm actually really excited to talk about these. I also just want to look down here and make sure. Okay, yeah, never mind. So for the Browns offense, now you have Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku, and then you also draft Cedric Tillman. And yeah, so I just want to talk about this right now. So first off, right away, in that preseason game, Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a great game. And a while ago, back before the NFL draft, I did a video talking about, I think it was ranking the quarterbacks. And I had DTR as someone with a lot of potential, and he showed out. So I would think by the time preseason's done, that guy is quarterback number 2 behind Deshaun Watson. And if anything happens to Deshaun, I would love to see this guy play some meaningful NFL minutes as long as he continues to develop, because he is so athletically gifted. He threw a lead block on a handoff. Quarterbacks don't usually do that, but he was, he's quite the competitor. You can tell how much he wanted to spot. So hope the best for that guy. But as far as the starters go, Deshaun Watson, he's the big talking point again for the Browns, second year in a row, because whether or not he can bounce back or not. And what's the season going to look like? Is Deshaun Watson actually not that great anymore after the whole holdout and allegations and sitting out and everything? Or does he kind of, come back to his form he was in Houston when he was, toward the top of the league as far as quarterbacks go, making the playoffs? I'm not really sure, to be honest. I've thought about it a lot, but I do think what is going to help him, if he can still get to that point, are the weapons. I think the Browns are very underrated when it comes to what they've done with their weapons. So first off, Nick Chubb, just kind of a given. Probably the best player on that offense, at least the most consistent player on that offense. Amari Cooper had a great year last year. Now you have Deshaun Watson. Hopefully can even elevate that even more. But Elijah Moore, he is someone that was on the Jets. I believe this is now his 3rd year. His first year on the Jets, he did pretty well for a rookie. He had some great plays. I think he had around 600 receiving yards. And then last year, it was just nothing. He just did not get the ball thrown his way. It was like Odell Beckham Jr. Browns highlights of Baker just refusing to look in his direction. That's kind of what it was, but with Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore. So I think Elijah Moore is a great weapon. I don't think you gave up too much to get him either with the kind of upside he can bring you. I think he can end up being a very good wide receiver number 2. So I like Elijah Moore a lot. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, is a good receiver, but I'm not sure how much work he'll get because of Cedric Tillman. So he actually just played in the preseason game the other night and had a few catches and looked pretty good. He had a really good route. He kind of smacked the guy off him a little bit, turned around and caught the ball. He found some open a couple times and made some plays. So I like that pick. I think it's a very sneaky pick, one of those players that quietly has a great rookie season and kind of builds off that. So Cedric Tillman, I want to see him get meaningful NFL minutes this year as well, because he has a lot of potential there. I think that is potentially Peoples-Jones' replacement. But again, if Elijah Moore ends up sucking, then maybe he just takes his spot and Peoples-Jones stays along with Amari Cooper. Not really sure, but it's definitely possible. Then David Njoku had a pretty good year last year, and I think he's honestly going to benefit from Deshaun Watson because I think he's just the better quarterback. I think Brissett actually did a pretty good job of finding David Njoku open, but I want to give a lot of credit to Njoku as well, who honestly found ways to get open, especially in the end. He had a crazy one-handed catch, I believe it was last year. So I want to give credit there too, because he had a great year, and I think it's only going to get better as long as Deshaun is kind of, back and how he should be playing. But the Browns offense, I think there are a lot of potential like hidden gems here as far as Elijah Moore and as far as Cedric Tillman goes. Even Jerome Ford, if he sees the field more as like that running back 2 role that Kareem Hunt had, I'm not sure if it'll be as many carries as Kareem Hunt had, but there's definitely potential there as well. So I like the Browns offense a lot. I think it's just the big question mark on Deshaun Watson. Like, what is he going to do this year? And honestly, I'm not really sure. So comment down below what you think Deshaun is going to do this year. Is he good? Is he bad? I don't know. And then I believe the Browns offensive line is supposed to be pretty good. I could be wrong. Maybe I sound stupid, but I think they have a pretty solid offensive line. So that definitely helps out Deshaun as well. And then moving on to defense. So a big signing was Zadarius Smith. He was from Green Bay, went to the Vikings last year, had a pretty good year, and now the Browns signed him. So you have Zadarius Smith and you have Myles Garrett coming off the edges. So why do I not see Myles Garrett? Am I blind? Where is Myles Garrett's name on here? Well, whatever. Either way, he's not listed right there, but yes, of course, you still have Myles Garrett too. I thought I was going crazy for a second, but then, yeah, whatever. Either way, so Zadarius Smith still pairing him with Myles Garrett. That's a very good edge rush. I like that a lot. Also, Denzel Ward, still one of the better corners in the entire NFL. I think he's very underrated, and he always seems to be pretty solid. So I want to put some recognition there. Same with Grant Delpit, had a great year last year, and then Greg Newsome too, very solid corner. So I like the Browns, but it is just a big question of if it can all come together for them. I think the defense quietly improved a bit from last year. I really, really like Zadarius Smith. I like that signing a lot. And, of course, Myles Garrett. But, I guess we just leave him off these type of things unless I'm just blind, even though I'm wearing these. But whatever. I do think a lot of it, though, like I said before, does hinge on that quarterback right there, Deshaun Watson. What is he going to do? Is he going to struggle? Is he going to take him even more time to get into it? Is it going to be right away, just instantly? He's back to being one of the most kind of best dual threat quarterbacks in the entire NFL. I do not know, honestly. I really don't know. So seriously, comment that down below because I go back and forth, but I think there is a lot of potential here for the Browns. But I think the biggest thing against them is their division because you are honestly toward the bottom of a very good division when you're not even that bad of a team. That's just kind of how stacked the AFC is right now. But I do want to go to their schedule. And let's get a look at this. Now, I already did this for the other teams I've covered in this video. But first against the Bengals, I mean, I'm picking the Browns. The Browns played the Bengals very, very well in Cleveland, it seems like. Burrow struggles against them for whatever reason. So I'm picking the Browns winning that game. The Bengals started slow last year too. So, I mean, I'm not really worried about the Bengals rest of their season. But I'm picking the Browns in that game. The Browns then go to Pittsburgh. I am going to pick Pittsburgh in that. I'm also going to pick the Titans to beat the Browns in week 3. I'm also going to pick the Ravens to beat the Browns and then a bye week. And I also have the Browns losing to the 49ers. Just a very kind of tough stretch of games right there. But then the Colts, I do think the Browns beat the Colts. After the Colts is Seattle. I think the Browns lose that in Seattle. Very tough to play there. And Seattle looks like they're going to be pretty good this year as well. You play the Cardinals. I think the Browns win that. You then go to Baltimore. I think you lose that. I think the Ravens sweep you, to be honest. And then you play the Steelers in Cleveland. I think the Browns do win that one. I think you split with them, but I think the Ravens kind of slap you. I'm not going to lie. And then Denver. I think Denver wins. I think the Denver defense gives the Browns a lot of problems. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, but I do think Denver comes out of that one on top. And then the Rams, I have the Browns winning that. And then Jacksonville, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning that. Chicago is a very tough game to pick because there's a lot of question marks on their own offense. But just kind of from what we know right now, I am actually going to pick the Browns. I think the Browns beat the Bears. I also think they beat the Texans. And I think they lose those final games against the Jets and then in Cincinnati. So again, not sure how many wins or losses that is total. I'll have it on the screen. But I think overall there's a lot of potential there for the Browns. I think they have potential to crack 500. It's just there's a lot of games that can go either way. And there's that very tough stretch from Tennessee to the 49ers with that bye week in the middle. But if you can even win one of those games, that's pretty good because that is a bit of a tough stretch right there. And even that Baltimore through Denver again, when you play Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Denver, that's pretty tough too. But the Browns are a sneaky good team this year. I think they're just in a very tough division, so their record just might not show it. But the Browns are a good football team. As I ended off the other teams, I do want to make some bold predictions for the Browns. First being Deshaun Watson. I think he passes for over 3,500 yards. I think he definitely has the talent to do so and the weapons around him. First full season back in a minute. I think he can break that for sure. I was kind of thinking about doing a Nick Chubb one, but I think we just all know what that guy brings to the table. I'm honestly not going to talk about him like that. But we will predict. Let's do Cedric Tillman. Let's do a fun one. Let's do Cedric Tillman, the rookie, getting in. We'll say breaks 300 yards and a touchdown. I think for a guy that has some talented wide receivers over him, if he gets that in his rookie year, I think he has a lot of opportunity going into next season, the following season, because I think Peoples Jones might be off the roster by then, or even Elijah Moore, depending on how that goes. So I think if Tillman can get in and kind of show out a little bit, he'll definitely have a meaningful role next season. Or if he really shows out, maybe it happens this season. I don't know. But we'll pick Watson, and we'll pick Tillman. And then defensively, I kind of want to do a Zadarius Smith one, but since there's Myles Garrett there, like, it might kind of, not work out like that. So there's always Grant Delpit again that I could talk about for a pick. Because he had 4 interceptions, 105 tackles. Man, do we do another offensive one? David Njoku. Let's just do Grant Delpit. Let's say he, let's do the same thing. Let's say he leads the team in tackles and interceptions again. If he can do that 2 years in a row, this guy needs some serious respect, because there's guys like Denzel Ward in that secondary who's, a very good corner. So if Grant Delpit can pull that off, I think that is honestly very big for the Browns defense. So we'll make those our bold predictions. But overall, the Browns are a team with a big question mark on them, because a lot of it does hinge on Deshaun Watson. I think other than Deshaun Watson, you have a lot of talent in that offense. If you can utilize that correctly, you can win some games. You can win more than I picked you to win. It really just depends on how that turns out for him. Defense, I think, is sneaky good, but the secondary could definitely struggle with other than Denzel Ward and Grant Delpit, who had a great year last year. But that D-line is looking very, very good. So pressure the quarterback, force some hits, force some picks. It's definitely possible for the Browns, but again, that division is just so tough to where they could definitely be toward the bottom of it. But again, if Deshaun's Deshaun, they could be toward the top of it. I don't know. It's going to be close, but that's just kind of where I stand with the Browns. But yeah, so on to the next team. All right, guys, and now for the final team of this video is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, it has the top players listed up there, and I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited to talk about the Steelers, actually. But so anyway, to recap last season, Kenny Pickett started out pretty rough, and I did an individual video going over kind of how the season was for him. And he definitely got better as the season went on. I think the biggest thing was that it became very apparent he kind of stopped giving the ball away as much. His turnovers were going down, and though it didn't always result in multi-touchdown games, he was at least taking care of the football, which is pretty big for a rookie. So Pickett finished the season very strong. Najee Harris had that foot injury for a while at the beginning of the season that seemed to kind of linger for a bit. So I'm going to expect a bigger year out of him this year. But again, it does also kind of depend on what they want to do with their offense, because they got some weapons around Kenny Pickett now, and I'm sure they believe in him even more than they did last year, because he kind of showed a lot. And then, of course, that defense, which kind of speaks for itself. You still have Minka Fitzpatrick, you have TJ Watt. But I think the biggest thing, I mean, that's not technically the biggest thing, but my favorite thing on that defense is bringing in Joey Porter after last year. So just kind of a quick rundown of last year, I guess, as far as Pickett goes and everything. But really, it was a solid year. You missed the playoffs, but, I mean, it wasn't terrible, I guess. I think they did get pretty close. I think it was like one of those end of the seasons, you need this to happen, this to happen, this to happen. It didn't really break their way, but still, they broke 500. Not terrible for an offense, still trying to find its identity. I think this year they're definitely going to be more comfortable with what they have. But again, on offense, you now have George Pickens returning for his second year. Still have Deontay Johnson there. You actually bring in Allen Robinson from the Rams, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well. Kenny Pickett, of course, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren as the backup running back, then Pat Freiermuth as tight end still. So I like the offense a lot. Like I really do. I think there's a lot there. And then defensively, again, Minka Fitzpatrick, you got TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Joey Porter. You bring in Patrick Peterson, very good veteran cornerback there. So, I mean, the Steelers have a lot of potential for this season. I think every team in the AFC North does, but the Steelers, I think league-wide, AFC and NFC, they could end up being very good. It's going to depend on a few things, but they could be very, very good. So to kind of get into more of this year's stuff after that kind of quick overview from last year, we're going to get into the depth chart. So Kenny Pickett, obviously, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Pat Freiermuth, and then I believe they drafted Broderick Jones. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they drafted him. But first off, just starting with Pickett going into this year. So obviously, over the course of last year, he became more and more comfortable, and that was pretty clear to see. So hopefully this year, he kind of stays calm under pressure, which he was already showing at the end of last year, so I wouldn't think he kind of regresses for any reason there. Najee Harris, like I mentioned, that injury kind of lingered for a while. He got better as the season went on as well. I think he has a great year this year. But the biggest thing are the receivers. I mean, other than Kenny Pickett, but are the receivers. Deontay Johnson last year honestly didn't have a great year. He did fine yardage-wise, but couldn't find the end zone. That's definitely kind of an outlier because the dude usually finds the end zone. That's not going to happen 2 years in a row. No way, in my opinion. But Deontay Johnson, great receiver. And, Pickett did look for him last year. Just couldn't really seem to connect on any passes for any touchdown passes. But this year, I would expect more touchdown passes. And, of course, the fan favorite, George Pickens, who had a crazy one-handed catch last year, made a lot of highlight plays, and I expect, another big year out of him, maybe even better than last year, maybe even better than Deontay Johnson. But I can't stress this enough. I don't want people to overrate George Pickens and have these unreal expectations for him because I think this is going to be very unfair to him because it's not like he's the standout wide receiver one on this team. Deontay Johnson's a great wide receiver. Allen Robinson, it's still very possible he can provide some meaningful minutes as well. And Pat Freiermuth, great tight end. So I don't want to overrate him, put all this pressure and high expectations and then him not hit it because it might not be his role. But the potential, if that is his role, is definitely there. This guy makes some highlight catches all the time. And he's just, very aggressive with some of his blocking. It's things you like to see. I can see why he's a fan favorite. So George Pickens, of course, big part of that offense, and it should be very exciting to really see him this season. Allen Robinson, as I mentioned, you bring him in from the Rams, someone that thankfully I did not fall for in fantasy football because that was quite the bust. He was projected to do very well, and Matthew Stafford just didn't look his way. I believe Robinson also got hurt. He's a good receiver. He's a veteran receiver. He can definitely do well in that wide receiver 3 role on the Steelers. And Pat Freiermuth, great tight end. I mean, not much to go off there. Not much to go off. Not like a whole lot to talk about there, but he's a great tight end, and I see that connection with him and Pickett kind of growing this year. Darnell Washington, you draft from Georgia. The dude is absolutely huge. I don't really know what his role looks like, but the dude is a monster. So maybe, I don't know, in the end zone, big body, maybe using a block. I'm not really sure, but that guy's absolutely ginormous. So overall, Steelers offense, I'm a big fan of this year. And the coaching, I know people weren't thrilled with Matt Canada last year, and he also continued, he's signed on for another year through the 2023 season. But I don't want to put all the blame on him for any offensive struggles because Kenny Pickett did struggle at first. So I think now, kind of a new year, you got guys healthy. You bring in Allen Robinson. You got Kenny Pickett with a year under his belt, looking much more confident. I kind of want to see the offense now and see what happens before kind of saying maybe Matt Canada needs to go or anything because I want to see more first. But Steelers offense for this year, I like it a lot. Really not really any holes, just maybe not the best players at each position like Allen Robinson. But again, I think there is still a chance that he can be a very solid receiver. And then as far as defense goes, so again, I don't know how much time I'm going to spend on this because, okay, well, hold on, before I get there. As far as TJ Watt goes, that's just kind of a given. He's one of, if not the best, I don't know. He is, I guess, one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL. But I expect a huge year out of him. Same with Minka Fitzpatrick. Alex Highsmith had a pretty good year last year. So let's talk about some changes, though. So you bring in Patrick Peterson. I get he's older, but he, actually played fairly well for the Vikings and made some big plays for him. The Steelers needed help in the secondary as far as corners go. So Patrick Peterson, bring him as a veteran corner. I think it's a great move, honestly. I like that a lot. My favorite move they made, though, was drafting Joey Porter. This guy has a lot of potential at cornerback. I don't know what his odds are for, defensive rookie of the year type stuff. But if this guy gets some serious time out in the field, which I think he will, he can definitely make some plays. I think it's very cool. He went where his dad played too. It's kind of a cool story there. So that Steelers defense is it's one of the best for a reason. You got guys that can make plays I mean, not even just plays. You can make tremendous plays at all kinds of different positions on the field. You have Cameron Hayward, you have TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Patrick Peterson, Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, these are guys that have proven that they can make big plays. And you also have guys like Larry Ogunjobi, I can't remember how you say his name. But either way, he's a great defensive lineman as well. He was good for the Bengals in their Super Bowl run. So again, you have guys all over the field defensively. I like it a lot. Steelers defense, one of the best. Again, and this kind of goes back to the same thing with the Browns, is that this is all great and it all looks really good, but like, you're in a very, very tough division, and that is what is kind of against you, is because I mean, and it's crazy that this is how good the AFC is, but this team was in the second half of the AFC North last year. The Ravens and the Bengals finished better than them. I mean, it's just crazy. This is a very, 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 very good football team. And, I mean, that's just how competitive the AFC is. So, I do want to get into their schedule because, I mean, that's just kind of like what I'm doing for this series. But just to look at, the Steelers do have some tough opponents. I'm not going to lie. And, again, football is so great because every game matters. They're in a tough division. They got some tough out-of-division opponents as well. So, first off, the 49ers, I think the Steelers lose that. I can't really see them beating the 49ers. The 49ers just kind of seem to be them, but just, like, better in most ways, in my opinion. And then also Cleveland, who you play in Pittsburgh. I do think you win that game. You go to the Raiders. That's a really interesting one. I think it could go either way. Again, who knows what it will look like then as far as, any injuries or whatever. As of right now, I'm going to take the Steelers in that game. I think they can beat the Raiders. I think they beat Houston. But then Baltimore, I do think the Ravens win that game, or maybe you lose that game. I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins. I think that defense gives the Ravens some issues. I'm picking the Steelers in that game. And then you have that bye week fairly early on, and then you have quite the stretch to end the year. So Rams, I think the Steelers beat the Rams. Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville beats them. I think their offense is just going to be so hard to stop. Put a lot of pressure on that secondary, and just not enough playmakers to stop them all. You also played the Titans. The Titans is one that can really go either way, in my opinion. I'm still going back and forth on this. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to pick the Titans. I like the Titans, and I think adding DeAndre Hopkins is so good for their offense, and their defense is fairly underrated. See, I don't know, though. I don't know. I'm going to just pick the Titans, but that can go either way. Comment down below if you're taking in that game, and that's going to be a close one. And it's also primetime football, so that'll be exciting, too. Green Bay is one that's incredibly hard to predict because I have no idea what they're going to look like week 1, let alone on November 12th. So, like, I mean, assuming Jordan Love is good, it could be a pretty competitive game, but I'm actually going to pick the Steelers in that game. Then you go to Cleveland, and we're going to say, I don't know, Cleveland or Pittsburgh in that game. That's going to be close. Man, I really don't know. I'm going to pick, I think, the Steelers to win that because I think the Steelers defense is just so good. You go to Cincinnati. I'm going to pick the Bengals in that one. I think the Bengals just, while they play each other very well, I think the Bengals are going to come out on top of that one. Cardinals, I really think that the Steelers beat the Cardinals. New England, this is tough because this is two very good defenses. This is one where it could end like 13-6 or something. I think this will be very low scoring, which kind of sucked on Thursday night. But I'm going to pick the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to be the better team at that point in the year. So I'm picking the Patriots there. And again, I do a week pick series, so that does not mean just I'm saying it now in August. It's going to be the same when that week comes. I'm not sure what it'll look like. So again, take this with a grain of salt. Let's just look at the entire thing. But I'm going to pick the Patriots in that game. The Colts, I think the Steelers do beat. I think they lose to Cincinnati. I think they get swept by them this year. And then Seattle and Baltimore are two pretty tough ones. I think the Steelers actually lose those three. I think you go to Seattle. I don't think you're good enough to really beat Seattle. I think Seattle's going to be very tough. And then the Ravens in Baltimore, I don't like for the Steelers at that point. I think it's definitely possible they beat them in Pittsburgh. I think they do beat them in Pittsburgh. But going to Baltimore, I think it's going to be very tough, and I think the Steelers do lose that. So, again, not sure how many wins, losses that is. I'll have it on the screen. I think it's very possible they finish last in the division. I think it's very possible that they finish second in the division or even first. I mean, seriously, it's just in the AFC North, it's just so close together. I really don't know how it's going to turn out. But I'll get to my standings in just a minute here for the end of the video. There's a lot of games that can go either way. I mean, like I said, like you can pick the Steelers beat the Patriots. You can pick the Titans game differently. You can pick the Jaguars game differently. I mean, it can. There's a lot of things that can go either way, or the Bengals games. So, again, I'm sure it differs, and it's hard to do this at this point in the off season. But if I had to pick, that's how I would pick it. But going back to here, so like I said, I have been making those 3 bold predictions for every single team. I want to see Kenny Pickett take a serious step, and I'm gonna say he breaks 3,000 yards. He got 2,400, still kind of finding his way in the NFL. I think 3,000 yards is incredibly fair for Kenny Pickett. So I guess I'm not sure how much of a bold prediction it is, but just because I think there are still some Kenny Pickett kind of doubters out there, I think he gets 3,000 yards. And you know what? I think he had I don't want to guess too low. I thought it was like a low amount of touchdowns. So we'll say he gets 3,000 yards at least and like 20 touchdowns. That'd be quite the improvement for Kenny Pickett. So we'll make that one of our bold predictions. Defensively, I want to say Joey Porter gets 2 interceptions and kind of makes a name for himself in that defense in year 1. I think he's kind of being a little underrated there, not getting enough media attention. So that's my second one for defense. And then offense, we'll do Najee Harris bounce back here. We'll say 1,300 yards rushing for Najee Harris. I think he definitely not had one of his better years last year. I think he's a much better running back than what showed because of his foot injury. And this Steelers are going to be a tough team. They're going to be a really tough team. That does kind of come to this video does kind of come to an end with the Steelers, though. So I do want to make my rankings. Honestly, I don't know what I said for the records. I'll have to look over that when I'm editing. Hey, guys, so I'm currently editing this and just realized I picked the records of, like, the exact way they finished last year. I swear I did not mean to do that. And I didn't notice until I was editing it and, like, looking over everything that I did that. So, kind of funny how that turned out. I honestly kind of like my record predictions. It's kind of unfortunate the exact same way they finished last year. But I'm just going to keep it there, honestly, because I think it's kind of funny now. So, anyway, continue the rest of the video. But the order that I hopefully said that in is going to be Bengals in first, the Ravens in second, the Steelers in third, and the Browns in fourth. I might have picked the Browns to win more, but again, that's my standings. Those can always change as far as the season goes on. I think the AFC North is going to be the most competitive division in the NFL this year. I think it's going to be between them and the NFC East. Very, very competitive. I think the NFC South will be pretty competitive just because everybody sucks in that division. But as far as good teams go, this is going to be, I think, one of the better divisions in all of football. So it's hard to predict this. I'm sure you guys disagree, and if you do, let me know down below what you think as far as certain teams go. Hopefully this video format worked for you guys. I wanted to do each individual team gets a video, but I just don't have enough time because of Madden coming out. Where there's going to be days where I do Madden, and it's only about, I think, 34 days till the NFL season starts or something like that. So it just doesn't work out that way without doing double uploads, and that is also a lot of work, and two, sometimes it just doesn't push my videos as much as I want them to be pushed and be able to be shown to more people. So hopefully this format works for you guys and you're able to still get a lot out of it as far as like looking at your team and the timestamps and all. But thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more NFL content. These are the kind of team prediction series we're doing right now, but still doing NFL tier list videos. Season starts, we're doing week picks and any NFL news and stuff that comes about throughout the season. I also do Madden videos starting August 15th when Madden 24 comes out. So it's always football content on the channel one way or another. So if any of that sounds interesting, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.